Real estate can drive you crazy. Sorry, Ian. Hey guys, we're going to talk Mental Health Awareness Month. It's May, and everyone thinks real estate is such a great job because you make your own hours, you set your own schedule, you're your own boss. But the reality is that real estate can be very stressful. It can be hard on your mental state, it can be hard on relationships, and it could be hard on your health in general. So we're going to talk about that today, how to manage it. And it sounds trite to say, but work-life balance is a big part of it. So, hey guys, Mike Ferrante here, and we are doing Tuesday training. We do this every single Tuesday, giving back to the realtor community, talking about education. We talk scripts and dialogues. We do business planning. And this week for May Mental Health Awareness Month, we're going to take a minute and talk to an incredibly high producing agent, has literally sold, what is it, Ian? Maybe 500 now,
I think it's
600?
coming up on 500. Yeah.
Coming up on 500 homes in his very short real estate career. We'll let him do a quick intro on how long he's been licensed, but it hasn't been very long. In just a few short years, coming up on 500 sales. And Ian's going to get a little vulnerable with us and tell his story. So, without further ado, by the way, if you want to get a hold of me, it's Mike at 21mike.com and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. But without further ado, Ian Jones, he has been a realtor, he has been a chef. We'll hear a second about that. And he's a young guy, but has already closed almost 500 transactions, and he's here to tell his story. Ian, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mike. And yeah, thanks for the brief introduction. I'm Ian Jones. I'm a real estate agent here in Cleveland, Ohio, on the west side. Currently residing in Westlake. And yeah, I've been in the business now for 7 years. I just hit my 7 year mark here in May. And I previously was a chef, a pastry chef. I went to culinary school, and I did that for about a decade. And then I realized I didn't love the scheduled hours that I'll say the demanding hours that the culinary world and the hospitality world kind of demands. So I quit that career and I started threw my hat in the ring with real estate, and I've been doing that for 7 years now, and it's been going pretty good so far.
Yeah. So two things there. People were doing math in their heads while you said 7 years, 500 transactions. Wow, that's almost 100 a year. That's pretty amazing. Now, Ian went like this, had some peak years, and then has gone back to like normal numbers. But so we'll talk about that, the stress of all those transactions. Everyone thinks, oh man, to do 170 some transactions in a year, that would be amazing. And there's a flip side to that. And then the other part, Ian, I also came from a restaurant background as one of the several careers that I had, and being a waiter, being a bartender, also a very stressful career. I mean, the timing and the having to like get things prepared in a certain order in a certain time, and having people like Chef Ramsay screaming at you. I know you didn't work for Chef Ramsay, but I mean it's the same thing. You've got all these diners who are complaining about things if it's not perfect, and then you've got the head chef and your wait staff saying, "I need this on the fly." See, I know terminology
He knows the
like that.
terms.
That means like make it for me now because I dropped it, or whatever. But it's kind of interesting that you went from one potentially high stress career to another potentially high stress career. So before we talk about real estate, talk for just a minute about the restaurant business and that whole experience. Like, did that prepare you at all for real estate?
I think it did. So I went to culinary school, and I always kind of make the joke now that I never needed to go to culinary school. You can get a job in a restaurant and learn how to cook and all that good stuff. What I did take away from culinary school was integrity in your work. And I have carried that with me through every career that I've had. I worked for an engineering company for a short period of time, and now I'm in real estate as well. And the integrity portion is what I've carried with me and why I conduct business in the way that I do. And that has been one of my biggest takeaways. But I also learned a lot from the culinary world when it comes to how to manage stress, how to manage workload. For a restaurant, it's 5 to 9 p.m. on a Friday night, Friday, Saturday night. Those are your busy times. For real estate, you're looking at evenings, weekends, things like that, where you might have a higher volume of responsibilities to handle. So that translated very well on how to plan and prep and prepare for an upcoming week or an upcoming day of showings, paperwork, whatever that looks like in the real estate world. In the culinary world, we call it your mise en place, which is French for everything in its place. And that's how I like to try and conduct my business a lot. You know me a little bit. I love my spreadsheets. I love my organization, and that's helped a ton.
Ah, you stole my mise en place line. So you talked about, hey, I wanted to change the demanding hours of restaurant going into different demanding hours of real estate. So I know what you mean. Like I remember, closing and having to do side work and not getting out of there till 11 or 1 a.m., depending on what type of business it was. So certainly taking back some of your evenings and weekends had to feel good. But talk about that for a second, the timing and the demands on your time, because frankly, I think this is a mistake that a lot of people make when getting into real estate. They say, oh, well, I can set my own hours. That's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
myth, right?
A little bit of a myth I've learned over the years. It's yes, you set your own hours, but do you stick to them? That's the question I would ask everybody. We are in the service industry. No matter which way you look at it, we help clients buy, sell homes, invest, whatever that looks like. So we are at the behest of our client, their timetables and their schedules. So the thing to do is up set an expectation with your client on when you're available, when you're not available. Give them a heads up when you have other things going on or specific plans, take a vacation, things like that. I try and give as much notice as possible, but talking specifically about kind of that expectation with clients, I let them know, hey, I turn off my phone at 8 o'clock. If you need to get like, is my phone off? No, it's not. I'm still looking at Instagram and Facebook and texting people and stuff like that. But I have an app through the phone. It's through iPhone. So sorry, Android users. I'm sure there's something similar, but on iPhone there is a uh, pre or it's in the settings, I should say. It's not even an app, it's part of the settings. It's called Focus. And you
Mhm.
can actually go in and change settings to silence notifications, turn off, whatever you need to for specific hours or periods of the day, certain days of the week, whatever that looks like. So for me, Sunday through Saturday, every day of the week, my phone does not ring or get a notification from texts or emails showing time, things like that, between 8:30 p.m. and 9 a.m. the next morning. So my evenings are, I don't want to say cut off. I can still see text messages. I still receive text messages. I can still see and receive phone calls, but my phone doesn't buzz. And that was a big stress point for me, was when I was doing this high volume of work. I had people texting me 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. I had West Coast buyers who were interested, who were texting me at 9 p.m. their time, which is midnight here. I had phone conversations that went into 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be that way. First of all, you can set your hours, but you have to adhere to them as well. That's the big point, and that was the one of the big hurdles I had to get over when doing more volume.
Yeah. So the difference was that at a restaurant, they say, well, you're scheduled from 4 to close or whatever the hours were.
Mhm.
With real estate, it's different because we can actually set hours. But like you said, and I think one of the key points is you set your hours, but then do you really stick with them? So if you tell someone, hey, I don't answer my phone after 8 p.m., and then you start returning texts, and then you actually do have that phone call, suddenly that expectation, that barrier, that guardrail has been stripped away. So even though you set these barriers for your mental health, for your personal life, for your relationships, your the important people in your life, I'm going to throw a quick term out, and this is something I've heard, is that you don't want the people in your life, the important people, whether it's human beings, dogs, whatever, to get the leftovers. So the leftovers is a concept that I think is a big strain in relationships in people who are in real estate. So, Ian, I guess when I saw what you had for your work hours, that time that you don't answer your phone, I was surprised it was so short. So you're literally on the clock over 12 hours a day, if my math is right. That's a long workday. Now I know we're not like I know occasionally you'll text me and say, "Hey, I'm on Glen Eagles, playing around a golf." But see, that's what the misconception is. People think that we're always golfing. We're, sitting on our sofa eating bonbons, that we're out on our boats like Mike Pillow down in Apple Valley Lake. So, they don't see the 12-hour day where maybe at 7:45 at night you start a conversation that lasts a half hour with a customer, a client who is in California. So talk about that for a second, because I know that was part of your stress, was having all these hours and the phone calls and the interruptions and not being able to have quiet time. And then also I want to hit that point that you made about having that decompression time. But talk about that, like how the uninterrupted stresses started to wear on you.
Yeah, that was where I kind of hit my breaking point. This is where I will be, vulnerable for a minute. So from 2020 to 2023, I transacted on, I think it was somewhere around 350 transactions closed. On top of that, I had probably another 200 to 300 listings, things that didn't sell, that the client that I was working with decided to rent out instead, and just didn't go anywhere. But I still had to go through the paperwork and the listing and the photos and all that good stuff. Um, so somewhere around 800, houses I was managing over the course of those 3 years. And there was never a time that I didn't have a listing. There were times, most of the time, I had multiple listings. I still remember to this day, I peaked at April of 2023. I had 40 listings at one time and an additional 20 houses under contract. So I was managing 60 properties, 60 listings. Now, the best part of that was that all came from one client, and I was working and contacting with one person. If I was dealing with multiple people, that would have been over the top. But the stress management of that, or I shouldn't say the stress management, the stressful part of that was I had, you know, one listing would generate 15, 20 offers. We're talking peak, kind of COVID housing market, right? Multiple offers, over asking price, all that good stuff. The phone never stopped ringing. That's the best way to put it. I would get phantom texts, if you're familiar with the term, where you think your phone's buzzing in your pocket, so you go to check it. And, I kind of had that moment where I would panic for a second, or if I didn't have my phone on me, I thought I would miss something important, until I got to a point where I wasn't sleeping at night. Like I would fall asleep. My head would be going, my mind would be going of, okay, what do I need to do tomorrow? What's the first thing I got to accomplish? And I'd set up my game plan while I'm laying in bed at 11, 12 p.m. And then I would wake up at 4 a.m., which is not how I normally wake up. I'm a late sleeper. But I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and I'd run that game plan through my head again, and I
Mhm.
couldn't shut my brain off. And it was just work all the time, constantly. And it was the payoff was great, right? Like that was all great. It skyrocketed my career. That was all nice, but it took a toll on my mental health, my relationships, like you mentioned, and just honestly finding time for basic enjoyment. I was eating a lot of fast food because I was moving around a lot. That didn't help. My physical health,
Right.
things like that. So the just overall management of that became, I'll say, it became too much to where I didn't know what to do to, like I said before, set up a boundary
Hmm.
to cull that a little bit. And so over the last couple of years, I have figured out some ways that work best for me, at least.
Yeah. And let's save that for last. Like, okay, so
Mhm.
we're laying out what the problems were, and at the end here, we're going to talk about what can you do about it. So you talked a little bit about the difference between a 9 to 5er who has time away from the job. You talked about commute times as opposed to us, who we are like on the clock the whole time. So this is kind of a nice segue into that. What do you do about it? By the way, guys, we're talking about Ian, who produced at an extremely high level, 150 some deals one year, 170 some another year were the two peak years. And the flip side of this is also true. Having your own schedule and deciding, well, you know what, I'm not sure what I'm going to do today, and oh, it's 1 o'clock p.m. I'm finally going to get around to doing some real estate. So it goes both ways. But certainly the
Mhm.
suck of being drawn into this vortex of work, 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 and not having any time to shut down. Like our bodies need to sleep, for example. Like you will go insane if you don't sleep. So talk about that, Ian. Start with the decompression time, like compared to commute times with a normal job, and then talk about some of the other things that you've done to give your body and your mind and your relationships time to actually get healthy, to rejuvenate.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I can say I can't take full credit for this. So when I hit my peak stress levels, I hit a point where I was like, I need to seek out help. So I found a therapist, and I sat down in her office and I said, I'm blown away with work. I can't sleep. I'm, eating poorly, all these things. I laid out, all the stressors that I had. And
And
her
Ian,
first,
let me
yeah.
interject. Are you going to tell the fire story?
Oh, yeah. The
Drop that
slogan.
quote. Yeah,
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 yeah.
drop that quote.
Yes, I'll work that in somewhere in here. But the first thing that she brought to me was, so she talked about cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone that we all produce. And in a typical 9 to 5 job, you have a commute to work, right? And I'm talking general history, not COVID times, all that good stuff. You have a commute to work. You get in the car, you drive 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes, depending on where you live and how much traffic you have. And your naturally, your cortisol levels rise over that 45 minutes or an hour commute, as you get into the office and start your workday. So your body's already kind of prepping for work stress. My office is a 20-foot walk from my bedroom to where I'm sitting right now. There's no ramp up time to get your cortisol levels like, you know, in a nice gradual incline. Mine peak, or they were spiking, and that's where I was reaching that level of stress. So when I say there's, real estate agents need to have a commute, what I'm really saying is you need time in the morning to not think about work, or slowly think about work, but not immerse yourself in it. Don't wake up. Don't do what I did, which was wake up, jump on my computer, and start responding to emails, start responding to text messages, and doing that whenever. Set yourself a time about an hour after you wake up naturally. That was the other big thing was I stopped setting an alarm and just let my body wake up when it was ready to. If I needed 12 hours of sleep, which happens some nights, I took 12 hours. So I stopped setting an alarm. I still don't set an alarm to this day. And I'm waking up earlier and earlier every day,
Same
which
Z's.
has been nice. Yeah. But the first thing I do in the morning is not check my email. I will, do what most people do, which is get on Instagram and scroll through reels, or, you know, go outside and sit with the dog and have my coffee while he runs around in the yard and does all that stuff. And I take my time, and then I will sit down and I will go through my emails. On occasion, I will look at my phone, I will open up my emails, and I will scroll through and find I'll save the junk emails that I get, the ones I don't need to respond to, and I just start deleting. If I have, and Mike, you're going to laugh at this number, but if I have like 30 emails in a morning, that's a lot for me. Um, but if I go through them pretty quickly and I go, okay, newsletter, not important, whatever, delete, delete, delete. Now I'm down to 12 emails. And some I need to respond to, some I just need to read for information, whatever that looks like. Now I know I have a smaller bite to take when I sit down and finally get into work mode. And that's kind of the commute time for me. Is I'm mentally preparing myself for what I have to do. The first thing I kind of do when I sit down at my desk and I'm ready for the day is I look at my calendar, and I use my calendar a lot for scheduling every appointment. I will throw, uh, different activities or work related things onto my calendar. And then my fiance and we have a shared calendar. We call it our social calendar. Anything that relates to both of us or that we think the other person should know about goes onto that calendar specifically, and it's merged with my work calendar. So if I'm looking to schedule an appointment on Thursday this week, well, I'm going to, Jack's birthday party on Thursday. So I'm blocked off already from 7 to 10 p.m. or whatever. So if I'm going to schedule an appointment, I need to have that. I already have that time blocked off. Um, and so that's just to kind of summarize. Instead of having get into the car and drive to the office, which maybe some agents do, I wake up. I was waking up, walking the 15, 20 feet to my bedroom and immediately responding to stuff. And it was because I was waking up in the middle of the night and I was stressed. And one of the hardest things I had to do was break that habit.
Yeah. Well, and Ian, for some people, it's morning coffee. For some people, it's prayer. For some people, it's daily gratitudes. Could be a walk, could be exercise. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really important to do something. I think that was really, really good advice. And then so there's the time of day issue. There's the number of hour issue. Which we have to set our own hours. Some of us work 50, 60 hours a week, and some of us say, hey, I have 20 hours or 10 hours to devote to real estate. So that's all our individual choices. But you got to work the story in about the fire. So this was
Yeah.
when you told me this, I loved it, and it was a great visual because I have this problem. Like I have and my teammate Mike Pillow's on here. He told me this as well, that look, we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders as real estate agents, and we feel like we're the only ones that can fix things, do the things. And this is where this great quote from your lady comes in. So take it away.
Yeah. One of the greatest things my therapist said to me was she said, "Don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm." And it is something that has stuck with me for since I started therapy, and I've kind of gone through my, you know, we'll call it stress rehabilitation journey. Um, where essentially what that quote means to me is you're no use to anybody if you set yourself on fire. You might think you're being helpful by keeping others warm, but you're burning yourself out, literally. And so keeping that in mind is always something that's really, like I said, really stuck with me. Of I have to take care of myself first, so then I can help other people. And that's a big sticking point with me of like, I need to make sure that I am not feeling burnt out, that I can show up for not only my clients, but also my family and my loved ones, my pets, and all that good stuff. So if I burn myself out trying to keep everybody else warm, there's no Ian left.
Right. Well,
So
it's like the whole concept of the airplane. Put your own mask on first. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Mike was thinking the
Mike
same
just
thing.
said
Put your own mask on first, and then help other people put their masks on. It's the same concept. So Ian, let me change gears one more time here because we're running a tad long, but I want to make sure that we talk about some of the things that you did to lighten your load. And before we started, I used the phrase, hey, you can trade time for dollars. So yeah, you can be an agent and do all the stuff yourself. You could just say, well, I'll just work another hour tonight. I'll work an extra 10 hours a week. But there are things, leverage, systems, software, people that you can inject into your business that lightens your load, trading time for dollars. And I don't know about you, but I would gladly pay a certain amount of dollars to get an hour of my time back. So talk about some of the things you've done to make that change.
Yeah, there are so many tools. I mentioned Focus earlier on the call, where this is just a setting in your iPhone where you can set times where notifications are turned off. Specific, what I like most about it, and I just want to go into this detail, is you can set exceptions where I have it set up for my family members, my fiance, um, and I think you, Mike, actually, where if I get it inside that blackout period, those text messages still come through. Anytime you contact me or try to call me, the phone will ring no matter what.
Yes.
Um, there's also situations where there's a setting you can turn on where if somebody calls you and then calls you back within 3 minutes of that first phone call, the call will go through. If it's something urgent, hopefully they leave a voicemail or they call a second time, and okay, maybe it's worth answering, the second time around. And sometimes you just can't do that. But the focus setting on iPhones has been super helpful, and you can customize it a ton. There's so many different things you can do. Um, Another huge tool that I like, and I know you're a big fan of this, is Calendly, which is appointment scheduling software. From my understanding, it's free to use. Um, and you can set essentially office hours for people to schedule appointments for you. If you have a buyer consultation or somebody who wants to schedule a call with you for a listing appointment or whatever that looks like, direct them to your Calendly link and then know, okay, on Wednesdays, I have 3 hours of the day where I don't have anything scheduled. And those are open, like open office hours, if you think of it that way, where people can schedule time for me. And then that way, when I'm having my morning coffee, I look at my calendar real briefly and I go, oh, Mike scheduled an appointment with me, a 15-minute phone call. And in his note, it says he wants to discuss selling his home at 123 Main Street. Great. Now I have a little bit of a head start. So using something like Calendly is extremely important for appointment scheduling. That way you're not scrambling around or not, if you're not in front of your computer or your calendar to jot down notes, whatever that looks like. One of the other big ones that I am still learning how to use, but am really enjoying learning how to use is Lofty, which is a CRM that's provided to us through the company that we work for. So it's kind of a benefit of the team, but it's a client relations manager, CRM, and it's a very powerful tool that can keep you kind of up to date on what tasks you should be looking at completing, whether that's following up with past clients, maybe doing some social media marketing, making listing content for your new listing, whatever that looks like. Lofty kind of manages that, and then also holds all of the data and all of the contact information for all of your clients. So that's been a really useful tool. A lot of people know about CRMs, and I'm sure we could do a whole class on them as well. And then last but not least, this was something I actually learned from you, Mike, and I use it still to this day, is in your voicemail message when I call you and you don't answer the phone, which is not often, but the voicemail that I get says, hi, this is Mike Ferrante. Sorry, I couldn't answer your call. Real nice message. For a faster response, try texting me. And I love that. And I have used that to this day since I kind of listened all the way through to your voice, your voicemail, where basically you're saying, hey, I'm not available to answer a phone call right now, but I might be able to take a second to respond to a text. I could be, you could be at a showing, you could be at a listing appointment, you could be having dinner and you just don't want to be rude and answer the phone. But maybe a quick text, hey, saw the email you sent, whatever that looks like, just a response. And going off of that as well, I will look at my text messages on my phone, and there's at least again on iPhone, there is a setting, whatever you want to call it, where you can mark texts as unread. So I can go in, I could read the whole text and go, okay, do I need to respond to this right away? Oh, no, maybe not. That could wait a little while. And I will mark it as unread so that I still get that little red
Hmm.
notification dot um, to respond to it later. So just a lot of different like time management tools. Some of these are paid for, some of these are free. I like the free stuff, but yeah, it's all about what's kind of important to your timeline.
Exactly. And the calendar tool is especially helpful, I think, because I'll tell a quick story too. I've got a client, one client in particular who was frustrated with me. Every time I call you, I get voicemail. I'm like, yeah, I told you when we started working together, like I am a busy agent. I not only am in production, but I also have a team that I'm managing and staff and helping everyone, hundreds and hundreds of transactions a year that we're trying to help everybody have a great experience. So if you want to work with me, you're going to talk to my voicemail 8 out of 10 times. The way to avoid that is to drop a 15-minute appointment on my calendar. And then when that time comes, I will be prepared to give you my undevoted attention. Does that work for you? And I think, asking the question that way made the client feel like, okay, he's at least setting the expectation, which is something you talked about, Ian, setting the expectation up front that this is the way it's going to be. And I also said, if that's not good for you, if you want someone who's going to answer the phone 9 out of 10 times that you call, first of all, that's not me. And maybe you should find someone else. And I wasn't saying it in a cocky, snotty way. I was just saying, look, this is what I have to offer. We did a couple weeks of value proposition, buyer agent value proposition, seller agent value proposition. Part of my value proposition is not that when you call me 8 or 9 times out of 10, I'm available to pick up the phone. That's not something I can offer you. So if that's what you want, I'm not the guy that can give you that. So I think it's important to be upfront with people, Ian, and let them know what you can and can't do, just like you've learned how to do over the last 7 years. So I think we hit everything that was on your list. We got to tell the good stories.
Yeah.
We got the setting the hours, having that downtime to let the cortisol levels drop and not always have to be on. And then of course, deciding what's important. When we do our time blocks, we always do the personal stuff first. Like we don't say,
Mhm.
well, here's work, 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 and when can I squeeze in time in the leftovers? We start with the vacations. We start with the date nights, or whatever you call it on your calendar. We start with those things, and then we work around those things. So, any final thoughts on your end?
Overall, I mean, everybody's workload's different. Everybody approaches real estate differently, has a different level of work ethic or, kind of drive level, we'll say. Um, and I think, this mold does not fit every single person. So I encourage people to just take a minute and go, okay, what am I stressed about? And like, what should I be doing to kind of not be as stressed with work? If
Yeah.
that's take on less clients, that's scary, come up with something. And then again, I mentioned it before, the hardest thing is sticking to it. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable for a little bit, but it helps in the long run.
Yeah, agents are so afraid of losing, but oh, that client might be mad at me. That client may use
Mhm.
someone, and you know what? Yeah, that might happen, and you have to be okay with it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Awesome
like you
stuff,
said,
Ian.
trade dollars for time. That's the trade off.
Yep.
If I could work 24 hours, like Mike said, if I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'd probably be retired by now.
Yeah. No, but his comment was, having to be glued to your phone for that amount of time, just in the 3 or so years I've known Mike, his whole demeanor has changed. You know,
Mhm.
I don't know. I want to say this without sounding like it's not a compliment because it is, but Mike was irritable. He was not the same guy that he is today, and I think that he is better at serving clients now than he was when he had that job, postmaster, where 24/7 he had to be available and probably for some pretty nonsensical things. So, when you start to see your personality change and your body change and your mind change in a negative way, those are the warning signs, Ian. Unfortunately, you listened to it and got some help. And it's not a sign of weakness. If anything, it's a sign of strength. I've done the same thing. We haven't talked about it much, but I think getting the help, and whether it's therapy or prayer or, all the different things that are out there to help people, don't be afraid to get the help and don't be embarrassed about it. This is a stressful job and a stressful life. So thank you for
I tell
sharing.
this, yeah, of course. I tell this story to a lot of agents, and I have never once had an agent go, "That's lame.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that." They were all, every agent I have told this story to has been supportive. They've been impressed. They're, ecstatic. And they go, "Wow, I really, I need to do that. I've been stressed with X, Y, and Z." So
Yeah.
I love sharing this story and these tips, and like I said, everybody's a little bit different, but this is what worked for me. And, if anybody
Yeah.
wants to talk about it more, I'm always open to hearing you out.
Love it. Ian, how do we get a hold of you if we're interested in either working with you or just want to talk real estate?
Yeah, email is always a great way to, kick off an introduction. Phone call. So my email address, realtor.ianjones@gmail.com. You can reach me by phone as well. Text is always great. I will say that much. As long as it's after 9 a.m. and before 8:30 p.m., I'll probably respond.
Yep. Very good. All right. And it's Mike at 21 Mike for me, Mike at 21mike.com. Thanks, Ian. We'll be here again next week. We haven't picked the topic yet, but we're going to keep it going here with we got some marketing stuff coming up. We're going to do some legal stuff, like not lawyer legal, but uh, keep yourself out of trouble type legal. We just had an interesting deal with one of our teammates, Rual, who's on the call here today. Just I see common themes, agents having the same types of questions. If you have a question you want us to address or a topic, just email it to me, Mike at 21mike.com. Thanks, everybody.